Oh, look at that. Like there wasn't a false start at the beginning.
Not at all.
Not at all. This has been the show the whole time. And nothing is weird. I definitely didn't put a post on Twitter saying this was going to be about NPCs. Nope. I don't have notes for that. Okay, that's true. We'll also talk about that. So, hey everybody, for the first time, this is RPG Help Desk, and this is Casey.
Hello, my first time here. What do you guys do on RPG Help? I mean, I've watched the show before, but
Have you really?
Yeah.
I honestly expect everybody I ever do anything with to have no idea.
Holy shit!
What I do on anything that I'm doing. I always assume that they're like, oh, opportunity for me to like say something that I like. Cool. I don't care about what you do on here. It just
No, yeah, I check out everybody's streams. Like, if I follow you guys, you know, I also hit the bell, and like if I see you're live, and like I'm usually at my desk, either reading something, watching something, like editing something, writing something, I'll put you on in the background, or I'll put you on so I can like actually listen to what's going on and whatnot. Yeah, maybe just Casey is a serial lurker. It's true. It's true.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try to do the same. I'm very ADD, so like there's only a few things that I can be doing that I can have a stream on, but streams are so helpful when I'm doing those particular things.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta get a schedule down pat. Like I'm very scattershot in terms of when my streams go live nowadays.
I mean, that's fair though. So what we're going to talk about actually, well, we are going to talk about NPC some today, but I really want to talk about Casey, because Casey, you're new to RPGs. Like, Adventurers9 is like one of your first, if not your first.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before on like a hidden gem stream that like I did sort of a writing role playing thing, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like a game with actual rules. Like it wasn't a tabletop thing at all.
Yeah.
It was like via Facebook group, and we legit just, it was like a writing exercise. So yeah, like Adventurers9 with you guys is literally the first time I've ever played D&D or any other sort of like role-playing fantasy game.
I'm so curious. There's a bunch of questions I want to ask for you. If anybody has a question for either of us, or for like being new to tabletops in general in chat, feel free to ask it. Would love to hear it. So what drew you to it initially? Okay, aside from, hey, do you want to do this thing and get paid for it? What like made you interested in wanting to try it?
If I'm being 100% honest,
yeah,
it was probably the TV show Community.
Really?
Because they had I'm a big Dan Harmon fan, and they had an episode, they had 2 episodes, I want to say, but the first one where they kind of framed this story about this kid who was being bullied, and like they were also kind of being complacent in the bullying, with trying to make up for that by doing a thing that kid liked, which was Dungeons and Dragons. Like none of the actual characters were really big or played Dungeons and Dragons, but they were doing it to try and make amends to this kid. And they told a really fun story with Dungeons and Dragons as the backdrop. And then like since then, like I followed Dan Harmon's podcast, Harmontown, and at the end of every single one of those podcasts, like they would basically do a group D&D session, and they would continue their story from week to week in their campaign, and it was always very funny to listen to them do that. So that was like my sort of secondhand relationship with D&D. So when the opportunity popped up that, you know, folks were asking for a D&D show, that we could do it like with our group of contributors and whatnot, I'm like, these guys are really funny. I've always wanted to try it. This, of course, seems like a great opportunity, and they're gonna pay me. So, so yeah, I was into it.
Aw, that's really cool. What has been something you really enjoy from it? Because I mean, we both do reviews and play video games, so like we're very familiar with that. What's something that has like surprised you about tabletop games specifically that you've really liked, and something that you're like, oh, but this part, like I'm curious from your perspective and like, you know, just your personality and the things you enjoy, something that you latched onto that you thought you weren't getting elsewhere, and something that kind of bothers you about it.
That's hard to say, because I feel like we're getting sort of a special experience, or at least an uncommon experience when it comes to tabletop. But again, like, I'm a noob, so I don't necessarily know how most people tend to play. The fact that we're never in the same place, I thought would probably be a factor that made it a bit more difficult.
Like the players,
yeah, like the fact that we weren't physically right. Yeah, I thought that would be problematic. But because we use VTT, this is not an ad, but because we use VTT, the fact that we kind of virtually habitat the same space and aren't just on a video call in that way, like in my head, that helps kind of make it a more tangible thing. The fact that you can like see the environment, and like you can see your characters, and like you can look at stats and stuff like at the click of a mouse, like that's very helpful to me, who I feel like if it had just been more so, you know, in the head or on a piece of paper, I'd probably find myself getting less engaged than we are. But honestly, so yeah, I can't really say that there's a downside in the way that we're playing right now, other than I guess that we're online, because it would probably be more fun to just be in person in general. But I mean, I know it's not like a real possibility anytime soon. But yeah, like the tools that we're using have really gone a long way in keeping me entertained, outside of, you know, like just Jack's DMing and like you guys all being funny and you know, just fun to like hang out with on a regular basis. Like that helps a lot too, honestly, just the group dynamic as well.
The group, that's like, in my experience, that's pretty much what makes like a fun tabletop game, is that group experience. Like everybody kind of just feeling each other out and like sharing in the development of a story and their characters, and just being able to have fun together in like a creative sense.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad you're enjoying that, because that is one of the things that I personally find most enjoyable about it, and that makes it different from like all other games that I play. And I enjoy playing, like, you know, multiplayer games with people. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of fun, but you don't have that creative element in it. Like,
yeah, where everyone is contributing to the enjoyment in like an active way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's that dynamic. It's that everyone is, well, it's rather that no one is trying to win the game.
Yeah.
Right? It's like everyone is invested in having fun with the game. Like that, I think, is kind of a major difference.
Absolutely.
Even among friends, like that salt will start to brew when like maybe one person is beating the other person a little too much, a little too handily. Right. And so they're like, yeah, you know, I'm not having as much fun anymore, you know?
Yeah. I'm real sick of you getting first place every round of Mario Kart. Like, that's getting old.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Not that I have any sort of personal experience with that at all. Man, love that. I'm also curious from like, if you have something to ask me too, go for it. I don't want to just like throw questions at you the whole time, but like, okay. Getting insight from a new player is, I find, both as a game designer and as a fellow RPG player, and especially as a GM running games, understanding how someone who's not familiar with it is taking it and is like processing it, and what their needs are, is immensely helpful for making a better game in the future, and for introducing new people to the hobby and having them be really engaged and feel very comfortable and happy with what's happening. Like, and they're like, oh yeah, I can't wait for next week to keep playing. Mm-hmm. So I am curious if you have any thoughts on like is there something that we as players or Jack as a GM, in theory, I guess in practice, but like just in general, could do to make like your experience better, or like to answer a question you have, or to like, you know, do something that kind of makes it even more enjoyable or help you understand something?
I mean, if I don't know, like this might be a personal thing, but it feels like I'm still probably the one who's the least knowledgeable in terms of like the actual rules of Dungeons and Dragons, like of the stuff where it's like, oh well, if I want to do this, I need to check that, or how many spells can I use at a given moment? Like, how does healing work? How does this, I don't want to spoil anything, but we were in a situation where I was trying to do an attack that seemed very basic, right? It's like, there's no reason why this attack should not work, and it just absolutely doesn't. And like that felt like as a person who's not vested in the rules, I feel like if I had known that, or if I had anticipated that, maybe I would have made a better decision. But like, I don't know, I feel like oftentimes I have to pivot like what I actually want to do with what the game's rules kind of railroad me into doing, and that's not the most fun. Like sometimes fun situations can come out of that, but it's like, all right, well, this was the plan I had, and then it's like, all right, now I'm pouty because none of it has worked out, right? So it's, but that just kind of comes with the game, right? I don't know, it's hard to explain, because it's almost as if like, all right, well, I think of some situation as a good idea, and so I'd be eager to like put that idea out there, but then when you have to deal with dice rolls and like these sorts of limitations that then say like, all right, well, because of chance, the cool idea that you had will not function, then it turns into something else. It turns into improv, like kind of like almost, it turns into like kind of just on the fly storytelling, like freestyle or whatnot, which has its own strengths, but that still doesn't really take away the sting of the, all right, well, this other thing was also really good, and I at some point put thought into that as well. So like that's, if anything, that's kind of a bit of a hurdle that I'm still getting used to, like having to reconcile the fact that like just yesterday, like you can probably remember, like I wanted to do something and then everything went wrong immediately after. So it's like, all right, well, what am I supposed to do then? Like it just, you kind of toss your hands up almost.
Yeah, that big feels on that one. Like that's something that gets me too, and it's more prominent in specific systems, and D&D is like one of the biggest offenders of that, where you have a cool idea and it has to take that idea and then filter it through some very narrow, very specific mechanics, and you have to go through one of them because that's the only mechanics it has. And that's why I like other more fluid systems, because they tend to allow.
And you said before that you're not the biggest fan of like D&D proper.
No, and part of it is that, and also it's, I don't want to say don't learn the rules, because that's not a thing you should say about a game, but at the same time, like if you knew how if you're playing D&D, it is useful to know like how many spells you have per day, how spells work exactly, how the action economy works, of like this spell costs one action and I have this many types of actions in a turn. That is helpful to know, and I think that some of that base knowledge could help with that situation that you're talking about, where it's like I had a cool idea, but I can't do that. But it also is frustrating in the means of like, if you do want to do something that it hasn't accounted for, you have to house rule it. Like if you want to drop kicks, if you're riding a horse, this is the example I pretty much always use. If you're riding a horse and there's another person riding a horse and you're like, I want to jump off my horse, drop kick that person off their horse, but then land on the horse they were riding. How the GM is going to handle that is completely up to the GM. There's no hard rule for that. That might be like 6 checks. That might be 1 attack roll. That might be like several different things. They might say, sure, but it's going to cost you 2 turns. Like, there's no set thing for you to easily do with that.
Right. It's just kind of the feel of, I guess, the party and the flow of the story that would dictate, I guess, whether or not you let your player do what they want to do. Because like that's honestly what most games are, right? It's like players trying to do something and the game pushing back, right? So you have to give them some sort of adversity so that they can try and overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I get that, but like it doesn't take away that sting where it's like, all right, well, my fate is in the hands of like a dice roll. Like
see, and I think about it as when I try to explain the dice, and it's very, again, this is very much like such a it's storytelling. It's so fluid that you don't have to do it this way, and that a lot of people don't, is that the dice represent things outside of your control. So like if you have a great idea of, I need to sneak into this castle and I'm good at stealth and I know I've done the research, I know the pathing of the guards and I can climb this back alley and I can do that, and you roll a 1, it's not necessarily that you have forgotten how to do it or that you were like stubbed your toe and shouted a curse word out loud and now everybody's there, but something outside of your control. There's a hungry cat in the alley and it smells your rations on you and it's meowing at you. Like, your best laid plans just shat on by chance.
The context of why this thing is not working out matters in that case.
Yeah.
Because, well, you know what? In that case, not to shit on Jack. I will never shit on Jack. Jack is great. But Jack can be guilty of doing exactly that. Of because of like a low roll, essentially turning the situation into something that the player character has now failed at, rather than like, you know, something out of their control or environment wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I've leaned into this because like that's the whole reason why we're doing a show for entertainment. But like in situations where like Sigmar is attempting to be a badass or something, and then it's like, all right, well, he just trips and falls on his face. It's like, all right, well. Like if that's the light that he's going to be seen as like someone who thinks of himself one way but is perceived differently than others, like I can roll with that. Like that's a fun character, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like in later situations where it's like, all right, well, I'm trying to make sure we get out of here alive. It's like, all right, well, he's still kind of a bit of a clown because he rolled low, not because like he made a clownish decision in that moment. It sort of feels like the character is being dictated by someone else or something else rather than like me who's role playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you say turning just the context into something out of his control would help a lot with that and have me feeling less like, all right, well, let me now start playing my own character in this way that the game seems to be leaning towards versus how I wanted that character to be.
Yeah. That's how I try to think of it. And that I think that helps me a lot. And I try to do that for when I'm GMing for characters. And another thing about, you know, different styles and tables is like player agency in success and failure. I really enjoy a more hands-off approach where if a character fails or passes and I let them know, they tell me how that went.
Right.
And like then I can go, okay, cool, and then play off of them. And if they don't know, or if they're uncomfortable with that and be like, oh shoot, I don't know, be like, okay, and I'll fill in the blanks. This is why this happened, good or bad. So that's another one of those weird things that really is table dependent, because some people don't want that responsibility and some GMs don't want to give that up, and some people do. I think Deebs had a comment one thing nice about not knowing all the mechanics of the game is that it allows you to act more naturally. One of my pet peeves is about playing tabletop RPGs is when players will be like, can I do X check for this thing, instead of just saying I will try to do this and allowing GM to chime in with what check is necessary. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's true, because I feel like I say that all the time. Like, I'll ask Jack, like, can I do this, or I want to do this, and then like I'll wait for his feedback.
Yeah, and I think that's good. For me personally, as a player, and even when I'm GMing, that's what I want to hear, is like, I want to try this. Like, not necessarily I am going to do this, like it's already done, or necessarily knowing how they're going to do that. Because another thing, I won't complain about D&D the whole time, but another thing that annoys me is that, like, okay, you have a perception skill and you have a investigation skill, and while there are examples in the rules as written about what each of those are, there's no guarantee that's what the GM is going to tell you to roll. Or if it's like, oh, well, this is actually a little more nature-y, so this is a nature roll instead of perception. Or this is more magical, so it has to be arcane. And like, you could end up being put in a bad situation because of that, or a situation we're expecting, because those rules aren't totally set.
So what is it that you prefer? I don't know if that question makes sense, because I know other games have their own rules, but like, they are similar in the sense that, like, based on what a player wants to do, they have to roll die and check whether or not they have proficiencies in certain classes of things. Like, what do other games that you like to use actually have versus, like, say, perception or nature?
So there's so many different rules, so many different ways to do it. So I'll give a few direct examples. In Vampire the Masquerade, or in World of Darkness in general, you have your attributes, which are like your kind of like your stats in D&D, your strength, your charisma, your dexterity, and then you have your skills, your drive, your manipulate, your whatever, kind of like skills in D&D. But how you use them is up to you. So if you want to break down a door and you go, all right, I am going to just I'm a big honking strong vampire, I'm just gonna brace for it and shoulder check through this door. So it's gonna be strength plus, so the attribute you're using is strength because you're just trying to use it, and then you're using your melee attack because you're using your body as a weapon. So strength plus melee, and then the total of both of those is how many dice you roll, because it's a dice pool system. So you get 1d10 for each point you have in each of those. If you're a clever character, you'd say, I got to get through this locked door. Okay, I'm going to use my intelligence to find where the where its weakest point is, and then I'm going to try and manipulate it and like use a pry bar to break it that way. So it'd be like intelligence or wits and like whatever a tool use. It has been a while since I played the official VTM, so I forget what that is. So like, you're determining how you are attacking the problem, and you're determining what stats you're going to use for it. And now,
because you're a DM as well, I know. Like, do you find that your more experienced players lean more into trying to tackle problems with their strengths, or versus like a newer player who is kind of like, this is what I want to do, how do I do it?
Yes, because an unfortunate problem with being familiar with games is you start to unconsciously metagame, and you're like, oh, all of my best stats are this, so everything, if you're a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And you're like, you can get stuck in that mentality and like only try things that you're only going to be, specifically good at. But so some players do that, and some players love that. and they want to know the system and they want to create a character that's like built around that exact idea. And other people, myself included, try to just be creative and do what the system allows them to do, and like try something new with it and like experiment and do different things and like play towards the character more than the mechanics. And
right, and I feel like that's where I've been trying to put my energy in AIN, is furthering the story and making for situations that I think the group, and then therefore the people watching, will find entertaining.
mm-hmm.
And honestly, that has been fun. Like with that as the goal versus trying to complete Jack's adventure. Like, I feel like we've kind of been, and Jack has mentioned this before, like we're not really getting super far in the quest moment to moment. But that's largely because like my, at least, meta goal, and I think everyone else has the same goal, it's really to like make it as fun or as interesting as possible along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know, like is that something you find in like games that you play, or is it more, because I'm in my head, I feel like people who have played a lot of D&D, like they have something vested in it, like they've had a character for a long time, they want their character to learn certain things or get to certain things, so like they're like, oh, I want this stuff to happen so that I can win, so that I can have my character be the best character and whatnot. Like, is that something that you see happen?
Yes, but it is very player dependent. So like some people, that is their goal, is like, I want to become a powerful wizard, and so they want to advance the story so they get XP, so they get new spells, so they can get more powerful, so they can become that thing that they want to be. Whereas other people and other groups do focus on, are the opposite of what we do, and they do focus on that main mission, and they're like, well, we have to save the world, so like, who cares about all the Jeremys we meet? Like, are they gonna help us? No, unless they're a shop owner, like, we don't care. And then other people, they'll have be way more like us and be like, oh, well, let's start a nightclub. Why not?
Because that's funny. Like, that's the whole motivation behind wanting to do a nightclub. I think it's funny.
Yeah, and that like playing into the character. So like, I trying to do the yes and as much as possible, the improv rule, and to a point, because you don't want to just yes and everything, and then you go completely off rails and you're doing things you don't want to do, or your character wouldn't do, and you're just like, sure, whatever. Like, that's not really fun. But trying to do that to like progress and everything, and like move towards that fun is cool. So like, nightclub, I was like, would Grinder been like a nightclub? Good place to start selling stuff, good place to make connections for that mobile market they'll eventually have. Like, thinking about the positives of it and being like, yes, all right, I'm in this now, let's do this. Right. So it really depends on the group, and like so that I don't want to say that's going to be the answer to every question. It's just like, it depends, but like, it really is so personal that so many answers really do rely on, it depends on the group and how people want to attack things. Because I know people that would be very frustrated with like how if we were playing Adventures Nigh as a game, they would be frustrated because they just want to fight things.
Yeah.
Like, we try so hard to talk our way out of every situation.
Yeah, and honestly, it's because it's that ends up being more fun. So that's where I feel like all of us have started to lean. Like, not to say that the fights are boring, but there's just less chance to like riff off of one another when we have to like be beholden to combat. So even for my character, who is kind of a warrior type dude, like, he likes to fight in general, like at his heart, and this is me projecting onto my character, or me trying to be true to my character, like at his heart, like he doesn't he fights to defend people. Like he thinks of himself as like a guardian angel, like a literal guardian angel. So he's not gonna fight any and everything, but he will fight when applicable. Like if someone's in danger, if something is being wrong, like he'll use his skills as a person who likes to fight or a person who can fight to solve that problem. Because like you said, nails, hammers, all that jazz.
I like
Like that's
that.
his first go-to, right? Is
Yeah.
like, look, if this is a problem in my eyes, then I'm going to solve it with my skill set, which includes violence.
I like that. That's a great way to incorporate like that idea of your character, and I think you're doing a good job on that, because that is kind of the vibe I've gotten from Sigmar, is like fighting is an option, which is nice for someone who like Grinderbin, who's not good at fighting and is supporty. Is like, sweet, if shit goes down, Sigmar's got my back.
Yeah, I defer to like Sigmar and Davarella, right?
Right. Be like, sweet, here's some buffs, let me throw out a turret, and then I'll run up and heal you when I can. I'll give you some supporty things, because yeah, just, and that's good, and like makes it more fun for, I think, other players, like especially for me, knowing that, and that it's fun that I can be like, sweet, if I think Casey the person is itching for a fight, like I'll try and incorporate that as like, okay, well maybe we can like escalate this a little bit rather than completely avoiding, you know, if it looks like it's gonna turn violent, like, sweet, let me egg that along a little faster to help Casey out. And like being able to play off that. So I think you're doing a good job on that. And I do feel that sort of like requires to be instigated. Like I guess the Bugs Bunny would be an example of like, Bugs Bunny never starts a fight, but once in it, Bugs Bunny is doing a good job in the fight.
Yeah, I could see that.
Narc,
I see.
try hitting refresh. Like it might be just you. Oh, go ahead, Casey.
No, I was just gonna say I see a question from Lampy directed at me. It says, "How have you grown / changed between season 1 and 2? Anything that surprised you when you started out?" That's hard to say, in terms of, because for us at least, season 1 and 2, like there's not that big a gap. Like we're literally kind of just continuing the same game. But I like, because the role that I hold in the party was the one that I wanted from the beginning. And I think someone else mentioned it earlier, because I've said it before. Like I wanted to be kind of unlikable as a character, so that there's juxtaposition between like, you know, the rest of the team and my character, because oftentimes everyone in a game is the hero. Like everyone wants to be the good guy and whatnot. And that dynamic, I feel like it's a dynamic. Like you can have a superhero team full of good guys, but like it's always better if there's a little bit of tension. And honestly, between our characters, it's weird that we ourselves haven't had that kind of tension, because that's what I was actually trying to breed with having my character be jerk-like. But none of the tension seems to come from me to any of the other characters. It's more so me and like NPCs. But then I would say Mortimer and Grinderbin tend to have a lot more back and forth in terms of like what they want to do, which I love. Like I love it anytime those two characters like start to like get into like oh wait, no, maybe we should do this. Like no, maybe we should do this. Like, because that's the kind of dynamic that I want, that I feel like makes a group dynamic like fun. So like that was my goal with Sigmar. But like it's cool to see that has manifested differently elsewhere. But like in terms of like outside our group looking in, like yeah, Sigmar always comes off as usually the most antagonistic to the other people that we're dealing with, which I also find fun. Like I think that's funny.
I do enjoy that. And yeah, Sigmar does. Pretty funny. Yeah, I I find that really interesting that you're what do you know kind of, because you said you wanted to be that instigator, but you haven't really felt like you've done that within the group. Do you
like
know
not
why?
within the group, no. Huh?
Like, do you, it's like from observing it and trying it, do you know why? Or do you like, people
I'm
are
not
acting
really
differently?
I'm not
or-
really sure why. Like
Yeah.
it almost seems like because Sigmar has gotten the group into trouble by being fidgety, right? Like he'll be quick to like act and move. Like there's situations where where everyone else is being cautious, but Sigmar will just run through a door, and that's me attempting to like be that kind of like, oh fuck, he's doing it again, like, but weirdly enough, a lot of those situations only end up advancing the plot rather than like getting everyone into trouble. So it seems like everyone immediately forgets that Sigmar is like not following protocol or whatnot. I don't know what's more episodes come out. I'm wondering if guys will start to like pick up on that, like the way he behaves in that way, and how like it just never seems to come up that Sigmar is getting us into trouble, because I don't think he actually is. Like he's trying. Well, I'm trying to, but like all he's really doing is just moving things along.
See, I think there are two main reasons why it's not working. Why it's not working like you're expecting, and it's actually working. One, I think, is Jack doing a good job of failing forward, where even when something goes wrong, when something goes out of your control of what you wanted to happen, it still advances the character or the story in some fashion. You gained something from it that you can use moving forward. I think it's really important. Two, Sigmar does do that. You're absolutely right that he'll go through the door, and just, hey, what should we do? We should go through here. Sigmar opens the door. But you are not alone in that, because Mortimer does that all the doggone time, but in a different way. As soon as we meet someone, he's like, house cleaning
You're right.
inspection.
Now that you mention it, you're right.
It's like we haven't even. I guess this is sure, all right. Like Dabarella will do it too. I feel like I don't do it as much. Maybe I do, and I'm just unaware of it. I do it sometimes though, and like, so you're not alone. It's usually like a physical action in which Sigmar does it.
Right.
But pretty much the rest of the party does the same thing, and I think that's why we're not annoyed, because it's like, yeah.
Now that you're mentioning it, I can definitely see that. It's that same energy, but playing out in very different ways. Like Mortimer will do it with his mouth, oftentimes, like unprovoked. I'm trying to think, like, because Dabarella will do it when it comes to food almost, but then also when it, like, she'll try, like friendship is so important to her. Like Amy has made that very clear. Like that's like a core character trait in Dabarella. Like I'm kind of interested to know why that's the case. Like I'm wondering if we'll get a chance to like do like real introspective character stuff with our group. But like Amy will. But the thing is, because her character is so earnest, and I think like that is affecting Jack as a like outside of the game and not like even his NPCs, but because Amy's character is so earnest, Jack will have his characters kind of like fall into like her big cat eyes. So like that's why that almost never gets us in trouble. Like when Amy's Dabarella is just in the face of someone who probably shouldn't like us and is just saying like, hey, make sure you like us.
It's a really good point, because Jack is usually taken aback by that, like that forward sweetness. You're right, and it's like that is, I'm now I think about it, it probably is severely influencing how all the NPCs in the world react.
It seems like it, at least. Like he says, Casey, I have the opposite problem to Yahtzee. Like I always want to make trouble and it works in your favor, and Yahtzee tries to be fancy all the time and it fails.
A question from Koning, like way back earlier, from like 30 minutes ago. I have been trying to copy questions, and I'm curious about, like, because I know you haven't run games, but I'm curious about your opinion as a player. Koning asks, do you normally try to end sessions on a cliffhanger or on resolution, which do you prefer? And I want to know, like, for you as a player, which do you prefer? Is like, when we end a session, do you like, we've completed thing, or new problem, hard cut, wait a week?
I'm probably biased because this is like the only game I've ever known, but it does seem like we lean hard in the cliffhanger side of that. And honestly, that works for me. Like, that actually makes me excited to come back and resolve the thing, which I guess is the whole purpose of a cliffhanger in the first place.
A good one, yeah. That's exactly what it's
Yeah,
supposed to do.
because even when we finished season 1, like we literally left like the kind of cleanup stuff, which I was still very much invested and interested in to do, and like that's how season 2 started, with us cleaning up the last tidbits from season 1. And like that also helped fuel kind of just, oh well, what happens next? Like, I'm curious, like I want to see, you know, what moves along on in this story. Because like, yeah, if we ever do start heading towards like full-on resolutions, then I don't know, maybe it'll start maybe to feel a little idle. Like, and if we start to feel that way, like, all right, well, I wonder what we're gonna do when we come back, versus like, oh, this is what I want to do when we come back. Like, the audience is probably gonna feel the same way, right? Like, they're gonna think like, oh, well, that's fine. I can take a break from Adventures Nigh and go watch and do something else because they've already wrapped up the thing I was invested in.
Yeah.
How about you? Like, when you go week to week in your games, like, are you also doing cliffhanger type things, or do you find your players like more resolution?
I like a variety. I think it works for, and that's one of the weird things is like in Adventure is Nigh, like we are playing an RPG, but we are playing an RPG for an audience. Like there are things that I do not do when we're in that, because I know it's going to slow the pacing down and we're on the clock. Or that, yes, this is something I really want to do, but I know it's going to be boring to listen to, so I'm just not going to do it. Like, so it is a little different when it's an actual house game versus a game with an audience.
So, I mean, on that note, then, in your opinion, you're saying like a thing you want to do would be very boring to do, so you don't do it. In a house game, would you still do it, even knowing that amongst your people, like, is it not boring anymore when it's a house game?
Yes, there are things that are just like bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is boring to watch. Like, there's no interesting way, I don't think, to do that. But when you are 4 people at a table and you're like, we have to prep for this, whatever we're doing. What do we have? What money and resources and things do we have that we can exploit to get the things we need? What order do we need those things? What is our plan of attack? I've had players spend an entire like 6-hour session prepping and were amped by the end of it, because they were like, we know how this is gonna go. This is our plan attack. We've thought of everything. We got, like, it was awesome. It was so great to feel that energy off them, and that they wanted next week, next time, that they're gonna be able to execute this plan that they've spent so long doing.
Right.
Anyone watching that would be in tears. The reason it's fun is because of the investment. So,
right, it's like min-maxing after you reach like end game in something like Monster Hunter World or World of Warcraft or whatever.
Exactly. No one wants to see you freaking scroll through all your armor to find your high poison resist in Dark Souls, your highest poison resist, and then you can do the thing. They just want to see you do the thing. But that matters to
like,
you.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I find that so satisfying to like inch my stats up bit by bit in I miss Monster Hunter World. I'm just gonna talk about Monster Hunter World now. Like, that was probably my most satisfying experience, doing exactly that, like super boring menu driven min-maxing bullshit.
Yeah, but that's, again, it just draining to watch. So things like that are kind of what I'm talking about. There's lots of examples of that, but that would be one of them. For cliffhangers and resolution, I prefer a mixture. I think for in a game sort of like Adventure is Nigh, where we are doing week to week, where it's episodic, constant cliffhangers I don't mind, because like you're getting a little bit of you know, something for the next one. for my personal games, I like having cliffhanger and then resolution and being like, sweet, kind of lower, like the peaks and valleys, like letting the game end in different points of that, so the players aren't always leaving the game feeling the same. They're not always high strung, or they're not always relieved. A thing that I think Jack does a good job of for leaving on cliffhangers most of the time, or like, you know, new thing, what's gonna happen, is that there was resolution of something previously in that episode. It may not have been the exact cliffhanger that the last one led on, but something was resolved, and we did move so forward, and we did understand something in some tangible way. I hate Lost, the show, because it is cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger with no resolution. And then when you finally get a resolution after 6 hours and 80 new cliffhangers, it's so mundane, or so just doesn't matter at this point anymore,
right,
that
like,
it doesn't
they've
feel
already
like a
introduced
resolution.
all this other new stuff.
Yeah, so
It's almost like
Mhm.
and I've not watched Lost. I've only heard of, you know, random people's disappointment in the final episodes, and Marty's just resolute love for it overall. Like, his Marty just absolutely loves Lost. But it sounds like they were kind of not confident in the resolutions to some of their mysteries, so they would do that thing where they introduced a bunch of new mysteries to sort of kill off the old ones that they weren't so confident about after the fact. So like, oh, this is the best way we can resolve this thing that we didn't think all the way through at first, is by introducing a bunch of more interesting stuff that we'll worry about resolving those in the future, and then kind of the same thing happens to those as they go down the rabbit hole. But I mean, is mystery, in your opinion, like a good, like, is that a useful or a sought after trait for like a good D&D campaign? Like, do you need like things in the world or in the characters' histories or your NPCs' histories that the players, you know, have to like seek answers for? Like, does that help? Is that how most of your players like to play their games?
I think as an element, absolutely. I think that mystery, everything you just mentioned, is an individual tool that you should have in your GM or your world building tool belt. I don't think a game should be built on any one of those exclusively, because I think that's where it gets stale. Is like, and I am also on the subject of mystery. I'm not a fan of the mystery genre. Like, just if you have mystery, like, that does not connect to me. What's going to be the answer is not enough for me. I like mystery as a subgenre. So sci-fi mystery, sign me all the way up. Like Altered Carbon, that is a fantastic use of a staple mystery with a sci-fi twist that makes it unique.
I did not enjoy Altered Carbon at all. But
oh well, all right.
But I respect your opinion.
Totally fair. Did you watch the show or read the book?
No, I started the show. I want to say I watched maybe 3 episodes and was like, this is very boring. Like, I liked the conceit, but like the way the events were playing out was just did not hold my attention at all.
Totally valid. It's okay if you hate the thing that I love so much. All right. Yeah, mystery is just like a tool in that tool belt. I want it to be there, but I don't want it to be the main thing. So and I think the layers of mystery helps too. Pretty much exactly what you were saying, where like, what's a mystery of the story? What's a mystery of the world? What's a mystery of the characters? What's a mystery of the NPCs? Those can all be treated separately, with different answers, with different connections, with not having direct connections to each other, but they can affect something both in the greater world, but also just on a very personal level to characters. So, you know, something you find out that changes the worldview matters to you, but it matters different than something that finds out, you know, that changes, that, you know, the big bad's number 2 is a sibling of yours. That's a personal revelation. You know, that what that character has done has not changed anything. Like, that, you know, it's not a big reveal of the world, but it matters to you. So I think it should be made up of things like that. Kind of a ladder. A story should be a ladder with a bunch of rungs. Rungs? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
The steps
Rungs
on a ladder?
I mean, there are ladders that have steps, step ladders. but I think regular ladders are just rungs.
Okay, so rungs. I realize after I say words and I'm like, do I know this word? Am I saying this right?
I mean, sometimes your brain just works in autopilot, and it is much smarter than you give it credit for when you're not in control. You're like, oh, I can't find this thing, and then you realize you put it someplace where you should put it, like it's absolutely in the right place, and you're like, I don't remember doing that, but I guess I'm smart.
Rat Beach made a statement, and I'm curious about like not your opinion on the statement. Lampy says it's called a rung. If Lampy says it's called a rung, then it's
a rung.
Obviously true.
But before we get into another question, I just need to point out that King's Dead wrote, "You're not my real ladder. You're just my step ladder." That's very stupid, but I love it.
I love that. King Dead, that's a $2 joke right there. Love it. Ratmeat mentions, as a player, I often fall into not playing a character because I'm like, okay, but what happens next in the story instead of helping me make the story myself? Is that, do you feel a little bit that way? And if you do, why? And can we workshop how to make you feel more agency in the character?
Yeah, I don't know if I do feel that way.
Yeah.
As if my character is like caught up in the story versus am making it. Like I feel very much like the actions we are taking and choosing are heavily influencing what is actually happening in the story. Like and if any, like you asked this earlier, and I don't know if I answered it or if I didn't have a good answer for it, but like that is one unique thing about like tabletop role playing versus like playing an actual video game, is that it does feel actually and truly as if the world evolves and changes based on our decisions. Like the stuff that we decide to do, the stuff that we decide not to do. Jack is really good about taking note of them based on what he had planned, and then like molding things around that and having them ripple out into the world. Like you were talking a little bit before you shut the earlier stream down and popped me back on here about how like
that didn't happen. I don't
Jack
know what you're
took
talking
your Jack took your Grinderbin character, your mushroom character, and basically extrapolated that into Florafolk out in the world, right? He took Amy's Tabuxi character, which I know is like an actual D&D thing, right? Or at least like fantasy creature. And basically said, all right, well, if there are cat people, then there must be bee people. There must be bear people, you know, like stuff like that. Like Jack is really good about listening and paying attention to what we, the players, are doing. I just smacked my mic. And then putting stuff in the world that, because of that, interests us. So like the stuff we pay attention to is what will become story threads. Like it's not like we get sidetracked and then Jack has to rein us back into the actual plot. So like in that way, like that's something that video games have not been able to do properly. Like they boast it all the time. They boast that your actions have consequences and whatnot, but we always see the threads of that once we get to the end. Is that like, no, this is really just, you know, a path that branches out and then, you know, coalesces back before the end. But like this could honestly go anywhere. Like I have a faint idea because, you know, we're all, you know, attempting to be storytellers, and, you know, we like, you know, our neat little bows and stuff. But honestly, like we can make stuff go really left if we wanted to. And I think we're all just maybe holding off that urge to just be purely chaotic in the world. Like we, but like I think we could really make things go really bad if we wanted to. We just don't think. I probably just don't think it would serve the purpose. Like to just see how fucked up we could make the the land of I've forgotten the name of the map.
Oh boy, I'm
like Gurren Lagann, something like that.
I am terrible at remembering names of stuff. So like people's worlds, city names, it's all gone. It's actually really helpful in the way Jack names things, because they're either bizarre, which helps me remember them, or they are a reference. Right. Like, you know, Queen Beyonce or something, and it's like, well, I'm gonna remember the queen's name now because that's funny. Or like House Knowles or whatever, like where it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, got it.
Like Destiny's Keep, like we gotta make our way over to those human kingdoms, because like that, I feel like there's some fun stuff going on over there.
Oh man, yeah, it's so names, the worst. Lampy brought up a good question, and it's directed at me, but I'm actually curious about it from not the exact question, but having to do with where your character is going. Like what you see as the future of Sigmar. Because Lampy asked, Jesse, I just realized all the others, the others all only have a history in their, oh man, I can't read. All the others only have a history for their characters, but you actually know the future of yours as well, and you're living between those points. Does that cause any problems or have benefits? So, yeah, character of Grinderbin knowing like, oh, well, this is a character that I've already made. You know, they obviously go on to have their mobile market and, you know, travel the world and sell ridiculous magic items. And this is them at a younger period. And so I want to answer that, but also I'm curious about your thoughts on like the future of Sigmar. So you can stew on that while I try and answer this question. Because I think it does offer more benefits than problems. An issue I sometimes have with character building is like understanding them well enough to be like, well, would they really do this? And why would they do that? Would they kind of stray from their beliefs? Where knowing that Grinderbin's built on like their reputation, where this is a person that goes around and is like jovial and friendly and makes connections with people, and specifically with like not the upper crust of like the marketing world, but like, you know, the people who go through the trash. That's where the good stuff is. That's that market that can be cornered that no one's into. So like, okay, what kind of connections? And that helps with me. So it's like, oh, you know, do people want to do business with Anus Quiver? Probably not a lot of them. That's an opportunity. That's someone that Grinderbin can work with, and get like a mutual beneficial relationship out of. And so thinking about that actually has had the benefit of like some of the lies and the cons that Mortimer has tried to pull. I have tried to do some of them. I try to go with, because it's like, I don't want to just, you know, do a hard no on something another player is trying to do when it's like, you know, real fluid. But some of the things where it's like, this seems, you know, antagonistic or harmful, and I can't be associated with this. I gotta be like, ooh, hey, actually, and like contradict it, change it somehow.
Yeah, because like your character has a brand
that they're
trying to upkeep. Right.
They have to build and protect it.
That makes sense.
So yeah, so I think that's been fun. I haven't really had a lot of problems with it. I think it's a really good benefit, is kind of knowing where you want your character to go. I tend to be a little more fluid. It's harder with it's more hardline with Grinderbin, since I know I actually want this sort of thing. Yeah, it really, the only problem I guess for me personally would be if the group dynamic changes enough to where, like, I cannot see how Grinderbin would hang out with these people. Like, and that's happened in groups before. I've made a character, and like the way the party was acting, I was like, I can't play this character in this party. It is just constant tension, and I don't like it. I don't want that. And like,
so in order to be true to the, you know, your character's beliefs and personality and whatnot, like, it would only make sense that they would not stay with that group.
Right. And I've had characters be, you know, I've played games where it's like, okay, this character says, I'm sick of your shit, and leaves, and like talk to the GM and be like, we're gonna make a new character, and be like, cool, here's how I'm getting out. And that's
interesting.
Yeah, it's not really fun. There's no really like good resolution. I've only had I've had good resolution for like changing characters. Like I had one character who was a floating consciousness that would bounce from body to body to body, and didn't know what their original body was, and then met someone who they had previously inhabited, and learned that they were in a coma during the time they were, like, their consciousness was in a coma during the time my consciousness was inhabiting their body. And like, and they were, you know, once they came out of it, they were themselves again. And that changed my character, because my character assumed that these people were like dead, or, you know, something had happened to where they weren't in there anymore. But then knowing like, oh no, there's another consciousness in here, and I'm a parasitic host, or I'm a parasite to this host, made them go, I have to learn this. I have to find out what I am, and like free these people, because they had no control over who they were inhabiting or when they would change. And so it was like, I have to learn what I am and how to stop this, or how to control it, because I'm not okay with this anymore. And that was very satisfying and really cool, like as a story. But usually if
that's like a personal character story, like that was going on at the same time as, I guess, whatever the larger adventure was, right?
Yeah. So that was cool to part on that note. Usually when it's based on like, okay, my character can't stand these other characters, so like I gotta make a new character. That's like never fun. But then you can make a character knowing, okay, this is how everybody acts. What fits
like you need someone who meshes well.
Yeah. So, and then you can make someone that's, you know, more fun to do stuff with. That was a long-winded answer. So how do you feel about like Sigmar's future?
Sigmar's future. That's a really good question, because I don't believe it's come up yet in a released episode, but they do start to ask about everyone's age a little bit. Like, I won't spoil what those numbers are, but I do, like, I really hadn't thought about it a ton, but just based on like behavior, I would think Sigmar is a teenager, like an older teenager. And like kids that age, they both simultaneously are overly concerned with the future, but also like not at all concerned with the future. It's like everything that is happening right now is the end all be all. But then if anything is not to their liking, they're like, all right, well, when I'm older, everything will be to my liking. Like, I'm gonna make sure everything is the way I want it to be in the future. So like, it's not like, in terms of how I've thought about Sigmar, Sigmar is very preoccupied with his present, because that's his mindset. Like, there are things that are wrong with now in his head that he wants to be a part of fixing, if possible. And in that sense, his future is one where he has succeeded, where he's fixed these kind of societal problems that he is opposed to, and like the world is just a better place. And it's utopian and it's immature, but like that's him, right? So yeah, I don't know. Sigmar's future, he's just older, and he's cooler in his head, and you know, he's saved a lot of people and done a lot of good in the world. Like, that's that's the future I guess he has imagined for himself. But like me as the person who has created this character, I've not actually written anything in regards to a future to him. Like Jesse already had, you know, his character created, so mine was made for this purpose, and I gave Jack some like backstory, because I kind of like doing that. Like if I make up a character, I like to give him like a little bit of like just personality as to like what their motivations are and whatnot. And Jack took that and like threw characters into the story, like from that, like the whole Egalier thing was Jack's idea, but it was based on a situation that I wrote from Sigmar's backstory, which everyone is still very confused about for some reason. Like Egalier is not his sister. Egalier was his betrothed. He did not want to marry her because it was a political marriage, and also she was dating his sister. Like they'd been a thing for a while, and he's like, I'm not doing this. Like this is all messed up. Like of course the parents don't care. They want these kids to get married for reasons. So the only way he thought to get out of it was to leave, and then he got himself into trouble after running away. So that's what happened there.
So, like, do you have like a set thing of like, in the future I do want Sigmar to do X? Like a set thing that you think is a goal for Sigmar?
I kind of want him, and like if I was telling a story that had to do with like resolving Sigmar as a character, he would have to go back home and like deal with his like lineage. So I don't know if that's a thing we'll ever get into. Like Jack has been using a lot of like ASMR like settings and characters and stuff, but like I have other characters in his story that have not, you know, been mentioned. Like Jack has put Sigmar's sister, he's put Sigmar's ex, his betrothed wife in the story, but like Sigmar has parents, and like his father in particular is very pivotal in terms of like why he's the way he is, and like and why he's rebelling so much, and like that would be, I think it would be cool to get that resolved at some point in the future. So like he would have to basically come face to face with like that part of his history, because as of right now he's a rebellious teenager who, instead of dealing with it, is running away. Like he's a literal runaway. He ran away from his problems to then solve other people's problems as a way of kind of coping with what he can't control.
I really enjoy that. I think that's really cool for you playing into that with your character.
Yeah, he's a dumb teenager.
Happens. We've been there. I think Deebs made a good point earlier. Says, I think how desirable a mystery is depends on what the group wants out of the game, and how good the GM is at creating a satisfying mystery. Very much agree. I think kind of a little bit to your answer, or your question that I pseudo answered earlier too. I don't feel like I'm especially good at creating mysteries.
Yeah, I feel like that's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. I try to do more like fun, interesting, engaging, and personal stuff. If I try to do a mystery, like I try to make it a piece of something bigger, because man, mystery is hard. Like having all those elements work together, and it's especially hard in an interactive environment where players can easily miss something, they can ignore things, they can just not care. And like if you have a thing set up in a specific way and they just do not engage with it, like,
yeah, just like your whole mystery falls flat on its face.
Yeah, you gotta find a new way to incorporate that, or like a new angle to go at it, or just change something. It's hard. So props to people who do good mysteries.
And the more I've thought about it, like I've wondered what it is that does make a good mystery, because for like I am personally very invested in the mysteries we've started to deal with in our campaign in Adventures Nigh. And I'm wondering, like, did Jack like know that these would be interesting mysteries, or did he literally just flesh out the world that existed based on like stuff that, you know, we all said, stuff that we did, and now he basically said, all right, well, if this happened, then this stuff happened, and we just don't know about it. Like, the mystery is basically just that we are ignorant, which I guess is what a mystery is. Like, there's a truth out there. Like, there are events that happen outside of your characters, and we are slowly learning about it as we engage more with that world. And like, it's super interesting to us, and I hope it's interesting to other people who are watching. But like, is it interesting because it's interesting, or is it an interesting mystery? But does that question even make sense? I don't know. That's another mystery.
I don't know if the question makes sense. It makes sense to me on like a personal level because that's what I struggle with too. But I don't know if that actually makes sense as like a, you could write this down as a question. I think a big part of it is like, for me, twofold. One being the how we advance the story is very personal. So like, it matters because it matters to us in some degree. Like, not that everything has to be like all about me, selfish, but like that it does matter. Like, how does this change? Knowing what we learned about shoot, what was the plant, the Florafolk town called? I forget. But like, knowing that,
yeah, what was that place called?
Like,
Flora Loco.
Flora Loco. I love that. That's a good name. Like, knowing that, how does that matter to us? How does that change what we know? How does that change our understanding of the world itself? And that, you know, because that's something we're constantly engaging with, that, you know, can have an element that can have weight to it as a story element. Even if it doesn't reveal anything like specific to the mystery, it reveals something to us that makes us go, ooh, investment.
Right. And Discordian Nest says, I want to say Pimpernel. I think that's right.
Yeah, Pimpernel, or like the Steel Lilies or whatever they were, like that gang.
Oh, the Black Eyed Susans.
Black Eyed Susans.
Steel Lilies is a really good, like, Florafolk gang name, though.
Thank you.
I like that a lot.
If we make a Florafolk gang, we can name it that. Yeah, like that was cool. It was fun. It was who was involved. But now we have a possible antagonist in the future. If we come across the oh shoot, you just said their name and I already forgot. The
I did? Oh, the Black Eyed Susans.
Black Eyed Susans. If we come across the black, you know, the Black Eyed Susans again, like, that's gonna matter to us, which is also really great as a hook for Jack, because as soon as he drops anything Black Eyed Susan related, it's an instant connection to us. The problem being, will we go towards it or run away from it?
Right.
And then that will change like how he has that. But so I don't know. I think a big part of it is personal, but I think, you know, general storytelling, the mystery or the plot progression is there. Not necessarily mystery of like, oh, and there has to be a twist, but like the first season, I have to not talk about this season. It's all fresh in my head, but it's not out yet, so I can't say anything about it. But like, so the first season, the Jade Homunculus. So what the Jade Homunculus was, you know, that it, spoilers, what it was, I won't say, but like, that was cool, but like the individual steps going forward mattered more to me than like necessarily getting it. Like, we wanted it because we wanted to sell it. Like, we wanted that cash, and we all wanted cash for different reasons. And then once we learned what it was, we were like, okay, this changes things. But we had a level of investment in the cash as well. Like, oh, we made plans with this money that we didn't have yet. But then learning what it was really cool. And like being able to have that change. So I think it's a good mix of the overarching grand story and all the personal level things that lead up to learning that. If that remembers. Jesse will go towards it because he won't remember who the Black Eyed Susans are. That's probably true, Lampy. Oh, Wraithbot says, a good reason to end on a cliffhanger. DM needs time to figure out how the heck they're going to have what happens, and because they didn't plan it. Yeah. GMing is a beautiful mix of setting up something and then changing it based on what other people say and do. And like I am a huge proponent of modular GMing, where like everything you plan should be broken up into pieces and you can rearrange those as necessary. Or not necessarily everything, but like most things. So, you know, who someone meets, they now have this information, or they make this decision. Cool. I expected you to do that over here, but now you're going to learn that here, or you're going to interact with this here.
Shift it over someplace else. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Jack has mentioned that as well. Like he said, like, oh, stuff that he's made and we've ignored, like he'll repurpose, which is good. Like, yeah, you don't want any of that effort to be like wasted. Like that would suck, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Especially if it's good. Jack makes good stuff.
Yeah, he does. He really does. A huge thing about GMing is repurposing. Whatever you don't get to, that's a later thing you can use. You made a room full of traps no one went into. Awesome. You now have a room full of traps in your back pocket whenever you need it. Like all things like that can be repurposed, which I think is really good.
Lampy has a question about
yeah.
Season 1. He says, also, why did you carry the Jade Homunculus when Jesse had a bag of holding? I'm pretty sure it was because we were following the directions of it.
Yeah, I think it was leading us. It
was
telling us where to go. Also, if you know something has a level of spoilers, sentience, like would you put your groceries in the back seat? Sure. Would you put your in the trunk? Sure. If you're gonna drive them somewhere. But like, would you put your friend in the trunk of the car rather than the back seat if you're going somewhere? No, because like,
yeah,
they're sentient, they're a person. You want to put them like in a interactable place. They're in a place of like respect versus like, well, I just put you in the trunk. So that's probably why. If I'm remembering history of events correctly.
Oh, Laby says I'm at the start of season 2 when it wasn't sentient. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Remember. That one I don't remember why. King Dead says quantum storytelling. No matter what door the PC chooses, it goes the direction you wanted them to go. It's not quite that, but kind of. We have 20 minutes left. So if anybody, I might have missed some questions, and if anybody has any other questions, throw it in the chat. So I'm going to ask you specifically a question, Casey. I think I mentioned this before, but I'm going to ask it more directly. So like, as a player, I'm going to say especially as a new player, but just as a player in general, what is one thing that me as a fellow player at the table could do to aid you in this group storytelling event that we call role-playing games?
Aid me.
Yeah. Whether that's like, I have a character thing that I want to do and I need someone to help me instigate it. Or like, I have Casey is very confused about X. If you did this, it would help me in the game. Like that. Anything.
No, not that you mention that, like, especially with the way we're playing the game and trying to tell a story. I would be really hyped about figuring out a way to, like, within the game organically, like, trigger one another's like character driven events, right? Like if there's something about Grinderbin that is not known to the rest of the group or to the the people watching, and like you just need a specific trigger, like hey, if someone were to ask me about this, then we could go start in diving into like this thing. Like I'd be super into like that sort of because like that was a thing when I was in that Facebook group doing writing that no one seemed to be interested in, because like and more so like we were literally all writing stories about different characters who were in the same location and interacting with each other. yet they would have all these kind of separate things. They'd have whole histories about their particular character that just rarely came into play with any of the other characters that they were in the same space with. So like I would DM people on the side and say like, hey, do you want to like collaborate and like make a sort of storyline that has to do with either our characters fighting or our characters having like a shared character in their history. Like I asked to borrow a character from some other player's like really long lost history or whatever. I was like, could we make it so that that character ended up being an antagonist to my character's events, and then that breeds my character's resentment towards your character's people that we then have to resolve? She went, no, that's okay. I like my world. Please don't touch it. And I went, all right, well, I lost tons and tons of motivation to be involved with any of this now, because like y'all don't want to tell a story together. Like you want to write your own story, in which case, what am I sitting here reading it for? So like, I don't know. It's like something like that I think would be really cool. Is like if we just collaborate in that way behind the scenes to be like, all right, well, we want to try and start this thread and throw that into Jack's world and see how he handles that, or how even Amy or Yahtzee handle stuff like that, because I'm sure their characters will also have stuff like they want to like bring up. Like I have questions about Dabrella, honestly, which I'm wondering. I've been waiting for like a good time to actually have us start interrogating one another, because we kind of became fast friends thanks to that first adventure, and like haven't really interrogated like anyone else's motivations.
That's very true. We have a nightclub to run. We don't have time for
right.
for learning more. That's cool. I am totally fine with that. Like if we want to like, you have an idea and you want to like share on Discord, go back and forth or whatever, of something like that. I love that kind of stuff. I think that helps build character. I think it helps build like relationship at the table, and like helps deepen the sense of like commitment and enjoyment of the story. So I love that kind of stuff. I am super on board with it. I'm not gonna say no. I like everything just as it is in my way. I know some people are like that, and I'm not. I love having like other people toy with things that I've done. It's why I like group world building, where I'll kind of thing that I have is the interactive backstory session that I have on my itch page. It's free. It's how I do session 0, and it's like at the first session I give a brief explanation of the world, and everybody goes around and one by one they tell their characters, and then we all have tokens, and when someone explains, tells about their character, they give their little backstory, someone else gives them a token, and it's a form of currency at the table, and asks them a question or introduces an event in their life that happened. And then the person who is sharing their backstory is like, okay, here's how my character interacted with that. Here's how they, here's how they dealt with it. Here's how it affected them. And that will also build up the world as a whole, because they're creating characters, they're creating factions, they're creating, all sorts of stuff that now is incorporated into the world, and that we are all aware of, and that we can all interact with. And now someone else is inspired by that, and the same gang that robbed this person also robbed this other player, and now there's a connection between them, and like doing that on how characters know each other is really fun. And like being able to like do that and have a better sense of it and help everybody build a world, like having an outline of like, this is how it is, but this is not only how it is. I really like that in both being a player and GM. So nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm super on board with it. If we want to,
I already have like some ideas even. Ooh. That I won't spoil on this live show. In case they end up being used or whatever.
Just that's goodies for the actual show.
Yeah, I agree with everything Deebs is saying in the chat. Since I never had a game with a lot of interplayer conflict, and it's something I always thought would be really cool. It makes the characters feel more real, and you don't always get along with everyone all the time, even your friends. Right? Yeah, like that. Like the sole reason for trying to make Sigmar a jerk is that kind of stuff. Like I wanted more interactions between the group that wasn't just we're all pointed in the same direction. And honestly, like he hasn't really been needed in that way, because like people's our different characters' motivations have bounced off of each other in funny ways, based on how differently we want to handle certain situations.
Yeah, but I like
I
that
think it's worked really well that way.
I think that's good, but I also like I think it's good that it happened naturally, but I enjoy that you're ready to fill that void and to be that like that gear that's gonna grind if we need that.
Right.
I like that. I think a lot. I think that's really cool. Discordia had a question that I am curious. I don't have a good answer to, but I'm very curious about you. Discordia asks, I'm wondering if you associate pieces of music with your characters.
I can't say that I do, honestly. I mean, my characters are very shamelessly based on other characters. Like folks pointed out immediately, like during season 1, but like my like Sigmar is essentially Kaname Tozen from Bleach, the anime. He's a blind captain with Soul Society. He's like, I think he's the only black captain. But Sigmar literally looks exactly like him, except he's not blind. And he has a different color scarf around his neck.
See, I haven't really watched much Bleach, so I had no idea who that person was. So
yeah, but it's a cool ass character design, so I borrowed it.
Yeah, that's fair. Borrowing, good stuff. Owen says I made that connection too. Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty obvious. But like, yeah, his newer look, I've already said it in the Discord, but like that was based on Michael Jackson's Bad video outfit.
Oh.
So like it's still, you know, his Soul Society. I'm not even Soul Society, because he wears a different outfit once he like defects from Soul Society. But so it's basically that outfit, but then like kind of altered, and then the bad outfit underneath. And it's just representative of Sigmar continuing to rebel. Like that outfit is basically par for the course in the ASMR lands, because it's like all celestial and proper. So he tore the sleeves off, and he he wore something like darker and more gritty underneath it. So that's him continuing to like try and distance himself and push away from the life he grew up with, because like like I said, like I do think for the future it would be cool for him to sort of resolve that tension there, because like he very much is of that world. Like we've seen certain situations where it's like his mindset is like a little demeaning to other people because he grew up in a place that does that. But he still thinks he's better than that place, and so he's gonna have to resolve that at some point and go back and realize that he's maybe not as progressive, but also that place is still a part of him, and he needs to like stay there and fix it rather than run off. Which is what Egalair keeps poking at him about, I guess.
She's like, yeah, you know you have to. You can't keep running forever. Yeah, for music, I don't have anything specific. I feel like if I wanted to get in like a Grinderbin musical headspace, I would probably find whatever the most like obscure music mix on whatever platform I could find would be, because I feel like there's someone that travels around so much and is like about trying to understand and connect with other people, that they would just listen to, well, what was playing here? What is this person like? Oh, you play music? Let me hear it. It's something that's you don't know what you're gonna hear, and you just try to appreciate it as someone's form of expression, as opposed to something you enjoy personally, which is very different from how me as a person feels. I mean, I enjoy that, like, someone's got musical expression. It's like, that's cool, good for you. But it's like, I hate it, and that's fine. I like what I like, and that's, you know, it's okay. So yeah, go ahead.
Am I allowed to pick a song for Grinderbin? Because I feel like I have in my head.
Oh, I would love
a
to hear
theme
it.
song that just totally fits him, and it's the Song of Storms from the Legend of Zelda series. Do you know how that song goes? You can probably look it up on YouTube real fast. But like Ocarina of Time, Song of Storms is like played via accordion or something. I think.
Is that the one that's like?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
that.
good pick.
I feel like that fits Grinderbin very well.
Say okay, on that subject, I feel like, I don't know if you've ever, for each other's music, I don't know if you're familiar with folk metal.
No,
It's
cannot
metal,
say that
generally metal music played with like folk instruments.
Okay.
That could fit for Sigmar, because it has a hard edge to it, but it has like a level of like class and history to it because it's folky.
Okay, I can see that. Nice.
Yeah. Hey, Blue. Blue asks, this is the first time Casey's been on my channel. No, Casey's been here a couple times. Because we played Road Company.
Right.
And I'm sure something else.
Probably something else. I'm sure.
Laffy says, thanks, Casey. I can't get that song out of my head.
I just got the song Storms out of my head. Well, it's back now. Enjoy it. It's a great song.
It is a good song. I was actually at the grocery store. I was at Aldi, and there was some kid, like, probably like 13, 15, like young teenager, whistling the do 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 do, that song from Zelda. I forget which one that is.
I'm trying to think.
It's like one of the main ones. But I don't
like
remember
the
its
main
name.
theme song.
Yeah, I think it's like the da na 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 da 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 da. I don't.
No, okay. I think that's Kakariko Village, or yeah, maybe Thundergun said Lost Woods.
Maybe Staria's song, maybe. But yeah, like he was whistling it, and it was like, man, it took everything in me not to like whistle along with him. RGB Blight says, came in late. This question may have been asked. What were your plan B characters you had, if any? I'm both curious if you had any other characters in mind, or, you know, death is an option. Do you have a plan B character if your character eats it? Not that they've come close or anything in upcoming episodes.
I have not given any thought to a plan B character until a situation where we were reminded that our characters can die, and should they die, we don't know what the hell we would do. Like we still haven't really crossed that bridge. Like we don't have a plan in place if one of our characters should die. So on that note, I've started to consider possibly having Sigmar's sister take his place, if that would be allowed. Like having Rose step up
move.
and be a part of the group because of if Sigmar should die. But we've not we've not crossed that bridge yet, so. But that's as far as I've thought in terms of like a plan B character.
Nice.
Maybe since if a character dies, just change their typing to ghost.
I am now the ghost of character, and I am still in this game. Ghosts are an underutilized player option. I just want to say, I ran a game where everybody was supposed to be some sort of monster, and one person was a ghost. And it was delightful. I highly recommend making ghosts a legitimate thing someone can play. Especially since this character was the ghost of a noir detective that had been double-crossed and killed and was trying to solve their own murder.
Mm-hmm.
But they had like their ghostly shape had like the fedora and trench coat and like fake cigarette, and they would
I feel like that's a thing I've
loud.
watched.
Say what?
I feel like that's a thing I've watched, like a a deceased detective is still trying to solve a mystery while in the afterlife. Like that's a thing. I feel like there's a game around that.
There's gotta be. But the player did a fantastic job. It did like out loud monologues and stuff, and like really played into the hard boiled edge.
That's
and,
really
like,
fun.
Did cool things as a ghost, like, you know, could be intangible and would do cool things. So ghosts, yes, if you die, be a ghost. That's the point here. I do not know. I don't have a backup character. If my secondary, I would probably either do either make up something as wacky as I possibly could to try and like both engage with and throw off Jack at the same time, because Jack seems to thrive on that and I love it. Or I would go to like if I want to make something new, or if I was in a pinch, I would choose an NPC that I use a lot, which is either Gentleman Jim Raptor, which I'm sure Jack would be okay with. He's a very proper raptor. And another NPC that I love using all the time is a flesh golem named Gargles on Bile. And I feel like I have gotten to play both of those as characters briefly in like short games, and they're super fun to play. So I would happily play one of them or make something up random that would just fit with the group and in Jack's world.
Lampy asks, if Grinderbin dies, does the canon get freedom?
Unfortunately, no. The canon is not sentient. Unless Jack would let me play the awakened canon as a character. That would be fun.
That'd be pretty awesome.
And okay, here's another thing. If character died and we got another player in the game, a thing that I have absolutely wanted to do. Actually, no, I take that back. Here's exactly what I do. And I would ask Jack if I could do this. Here's what I do. I would want to play a sentient magic weapon that one of the other characters wields. So like they do not have like mobility or like anything like that themselves, but they are a sentient talking magic weapon that one of the other characters gets to use. I have been wanting to do that for so long.
Like, what's been stopping you? How come you haven't done it yet?
Playing a game, like being a player. That's the forever GM, so that's a bit of an issue. And then like that's a hard sell in a lot of games because you're essentially breaking a lot of mechanics, because it's like, do you have HP? Are you a target? Like, you have no movement. How does that work? Like,
right.
There's so many things in games, you know, like Pathfinder or D&D, or even like more fluid ones like Fate, or was it Powered by the Apocalypse games? Like, you are still dealing with stuff the game wasn't really meant to do. And so you have to have someone who's really willing to bend rules and work with situations they were never supposed to really work with, just to help you do a dumb thing you wanted to do. So not all GMs are up for that, and that's totally valid. And not all, and some systems are straight up bad at that. D&D being one of those systems, it is not good for that.
At letting you do sentient weapons, huh?
Yeah.
And like that's supposed to be like the big draw, right? Is that you can kind of do whatever you want, so to speak,
right,
in a role-playing game. So yeah, I get it. I can see why the disdain for D&D.
It always shuts me down on whatever creative thing I want to do.
Lampy says, or play as Dory. I don't know if anybody wants to be subjected, will be forced to do that voice for their whole campaign.
I wouldn't be able to do it justice. I would try, but like, if you've watched the trailer for Grinderbin's Mobile Market for the book, like, you'll understand how incredibly bad my impression of a very good voice is for Grinderbin.
Okay. Where can people find that?
That's on
the trailer.
It's on my itch. It's on my YouTube page, but it's also on. If you go to my itch page, which is rexconjesse.itch.io. Hang on, let me write that in chat. And then go to Grinderbin's mobile market as one of the products and click that. The video is on there. It's also on the Kickstarter, but like, why go there? I mean, that's just the old Kickstarter page for it. Hang on, I'll bring up the actual link, because it's my brother-in-law did the voice. He was a theater major.
Nice.
And I was like, I need a voice for this character. Do you want to do it? And he was like, yes. Sign me all the way up. There's the itch page link. And like he was really excited to do it too, because like he loves, an actor. He loves doing this kind of stuff. And so he was like, he did like a bunch of different voices and was like, which one do you like? And I was like, oh, I really like this one. He's like, you had to pick the absolute hardest one to do. Thanks. And then I was like, I didn't think it was that bad, but okay. And then trying to do it, it's like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty freaking hard. It's really solid though. He does a great job. Imagine that voice for Grinderbin rather than the poor impression I make.
I don't know. I think it has its charm.
Well, thank you. If I can get that, that's good. All right. It is 2, so we are going to stop now.
Oh yeah.
Casey,
bye.
Yeah, end it. This was a hoot. Thank you so much, Casey.
It's fun.
Really glad we got to chat about characters and being new to RPGs and thoughts, and that we can scheme and think of new plot things to instigate with each other.
Yes.
So everybody check out Adventurers Nigh. Casey's on it. Which is the main reason to check it out. There's other people too, but who cares about them? Casey's on it. Jack, Yahtzee, Amy, me, doesn't matter. Casey, pitch yourself. Say some things.
Oh, hey. I also stream on Twitch, so if you're not already, follow me over on my channel at SigmaGears9. Make sure you're doing that. I'll be continuing my playthrough, my challenge of the Smash diet, where I'm playing from the heaviest Smash character all the way down to the smallest on Captain Falcon right now, so been making some headway. And also I'm going through Castlevania Symphony of the Night as well, so those streams do pop up sort of randomly, so it's important that you're actually following and have notifications enabled so that you actually know when I go live, because it could be at any time. It could be at 3 a.m.
You're awake and
I don't know. I don't even know when I'm going live, so there you go. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Also follow the open party, because I do fun stuff over there too. We were playing multiverses with the group the other day. The game's a lot more fun than you would think.
Yeah, how has multiverses been?
It's been fun. It's been really fun. I think the alpha comes to an end soon. I don't know if it's done yet. So I don't know. Maybe I'll try to get in some more time with that before it's done. But that's gonna be a free to play game anyway when it drops. So
I didn't actually know it was free to play until we played it and people mentioned that on game night. I was like, oh, okay. I'm really curious, and I want to hear your opinions on it, because I thought Multiverses was completely fine, and I'm with you on I actually don't like Brawlhalla. And I think it was better than that.
I think Brawlhalla is whack.
Yeah, full agree. No caveats. I thought Multiverses was all right, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on it as it changes, and if I should get back into it as as more than just a strictly when other people ask me to do it sort of thing.
The thing is, it still works as that, right? It's free to play, so there's no barrier to entry. And if they introduce a fun new character who appeals to you personally, you'd be like, all right, well, sure, I'll pop it back in to check out that character or whatever gear they have for that character. It's a model that can and absolutely will work. I'll be surprised if that game does not do well based on the quality of this alpha so far.
Cool.
But Smash is still king. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, there's a reason I uninstalled Multiverses after we were done, because I was like, I have Smash right there, and if I want to play this game, I'm just going to play Smash. Like, it's a fine game, but Smash.
Steve says I think it ends today. All right, well, I should probably get some time in today then.
Oh, could be a fun game to play on Thursday with Blake. Yeah, I agree. We'll definitely play that once it's out and free, that we can play, because then our people can join it too. And I feel like that is a nice, like, lack of barrier to entry that Smash unfortunately does have, is you do have to pay full price. You do have to own a Switch.
And you got to have Switch Online if you're going to play with other people and stuff like that. That's
also very true. So that's good. That's a good point.
But yeah, that does it for me.
Cool. Thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. It was really cool to see a bunch of people in here. Also, Megami, I accept this bug meat. I hope you two will accept this bug meat.
Bug meat accepted.
Very accepted. Thanks everybody for coming. This was really fun. Thank you, Casey, for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Surprise, here we are, stream that definitely didn't start as a different stream. It's okay, don't worry about it. So, Filthy and Free Publishing over on YouTube. It's okay, you can watch the VOD over on YouTube as well, and then you can catch it. And everybody else can
conversation. Watch it over.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna close out. You'll have a good one. See you tomorrow night when we play Evil Dead. Bye.